this is brought to you by the 21-day challenge. If you are an entrepreneur, a high achiever, and you just want that clarity in life, you want to break through your BS, and you want to achieve bigger results, that's what the 21-day challenge is for, to get you back on the path for 21 days of one-on-one accountability so that you can be your GPS. If you're interested, go to beyourgps.com, find the contact info. You can message me there, or burnandlearnnow@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook. However you want to get a hold of me, come find me. Let me know you're ready for the 21-day challenge. Next up is the iTunes review of the week, and this week, the iTunes review of the week is by Sophia Wise One. Sophia says, inspiration, that's the deal. Reminding me what's possible, keeping us on track. Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate you. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on the iTunes store, and you can find us like that. Thanks so much in advance for doing that, letting us know what you love. Now, again, Jason is going to be on here in a minute. He's going to bring the heat and absolutely help you transform your business with these subconscious secrets to really grow, to really thrive, and really prosper. Before that, though, I'm going to make sure I read his intro in a minute. And before that, grab a pen, grab paper, make sure you're ready to take notes because he shares the gold. Last time he was on here, it was just so much fun, so much value, so much wisdom. So make sure you're ready for that and ready to capture it all so you can put it into use. It's super important. So let's introduce him, and then we'll bring him on the screen. So Mr. Jason Linett. Oh my goodness gracious. Can a hypnotist really help you grow your business? Jason Linett has hypnotized more than 250,000 people. It's like some people don't even meet that many people in their lifetime. He uses the principles of rapport and modeling to track what top business performers and professional athletes do differently to build his own multi-million-dollar brand. As a master of the micro niche, he speaks to groups around the world and offers hypnotic success coaching to share how people in business can put his work smart principles and strategies to use. Rather than just hypnotize you to become more successful, he will help you de-hypnotize the misconceptions, fears, doubts, and ineffective strategies that are holding you back. Jason's process isn't magic, and the results can be magical. Jason, you ready to rock this, bro?
Bring it on. Oh, yeah.
Bring it on. I love it. We are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Jason, thanks for coming back for another round, dude. This is going to be a blast, and I appreciate you making the time to share with our audience how we can become our GPS with you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. I have to ask, are you in Vegas right now?
I am in Vegas.
Okay, yeah, we should have done this another time because I'm going to be there in 2 weeks.
Oh!
But we'll connect by way of the interwebs and yay technology.
That's right. That's right. I love it, man. So we're going to dive into the question, which is how to fly. Jason, first, love yourself. How do you fly? What does that mean to you? How does that show up in your life?
If you look me up on YouTube, there's all sorts of videos, whether it's me speaking to business groups or wellness professions or just simply doing a demo as being a hypnotist. And there's a bit of a running gag that often does need to be explained, where you see me kind of doing one of these things, and it's meant to be a joke. It's meant to be something a bit playful. Yeah. And really it comes back to, I meet so many people who hold back from the moment of just going, I'm good at what I do.
Wow.
You know, here's the results that I've got. So to take that moment and yes, praise yourself. There's a thing in my book called, Feel Good, right? Yeah. There's a chapter in my book called Stay Humble, which kind of does balance out that, yes, there are moments we have to listen to criticism that comes at us. If you haven't yet heard, there's a philosopher by the name of Taylor Swift, and she apparently says that haters gonna hate. And, you know, there are going to be moments where the more stuff you put out there, the more people are going to have an opinion, of course, about what you do. Yeah. And there is something to be said about not just dismissing every bit of it. There may be something to what's being said, though also take those moments and read your own testimonials all over again. Yeah. You know, remind yourself why you're doing the work and just own that moment of going, here's this thing that I do exceptionally well. And this is something that's now my ethical responsibility to share with the world.
Dude, that's so powerful. So I heard 3 great gold nuggets in there. One is like literally pat yourself on the back. Like that is such a game changer when you don't care about how you look. You don't care what people think about you. You do it because it feels good. It's like, man, I am awesome. And there's the anchoring too of that, right? Like you're actually patting yourself on the back to feel good about that action. And you touch yourself on the back in that spot and you're like, man, this feels good, and it locks it in. That's so powerful, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So again, getting just that mindset that it's okay to praise ourselves. It's okay to
Mm.
celebrate those successes, and then from there, how do I level that up the next go around?
Yeah, yeah, and reading testimonials you mentioned, super
Mhm.
super powerful to just reprogram ourselves. Hey, what have I done? A lot of people also say to write a success journal, write down all the things that you've accomplished and things that you've been successful at. And every time you are feeling unsure of yourself or lacking confidence, you can go back to that and remind yourself what you've already done. Maybe you've graduated, maybe you got married, maybe you had kids, maybe you traveled the world. If you remind yourself about how awesome you are, then you'll show up powerfully while balancing that with the humility to learn and be open to be a student. Having that flexibility of being a student is something that's super powerful too.
Yeah, I love that application of flexibility, especially to learning that
Mm.
I teach a number of live events, and sometimes I'll do the bonus that, oh, if you've attended before, you can come back again, no extra charge. And I
Wow.
had a student who attended one of my courses 4 years later after he had done it the first time, just to refresh it. And there was a comment one time where he goes, "Hey, you're doing this a little bit more efficiently now. You're teaching the class better in less days." And I had to respond, "Yeah, it's not the stuff that I sold you the first time. No, that it's looking that you're in the trenches, actually doing the work, and you find
Yeah.
the way to streamline how you
Mm.
do it and present
Mm.
it better and get to the point a little quicker too, and just
Yeah.
compartmentalize it into these little chunks that someone can actually now make use of."
Mm, so awesome. I love it, Jason. I love it. So, for people who are just now connecting with you, why don't you share a little bit more about how you do this hypnosis and NLP and you do these seminars? Tell us a little bit more about the clients that you serve.
Yeah, so I tend to spend my time in a little bit of an intentional three-ring circus that I
Mm,
see live clients in a one-to-one format, whether that's here in my Northern Virginia office or perhaps the wonders of internet nowadays around the world, like with platforms like we're connecting right now.
yeah.
Then from there too, working and teaching other people how to do hypnosis, whether it's
Mm,
the linguistic side with neurolinguistic programming, more conversational hypnosis and sales applications of it, or even the aspect of actually just teaching how to do hypnosis and
right.
offering certification courses. The sort of bigger perspective nowadays is the ability to take the business around the world, whether it's
Wow.
speaking, whether it's informing through educational programs online.
Mm,
That it so often I live
powerful.
by the phrase that it's not just the platform, it's also the strategy,
Yeah.
that people fall prey to this idea, especially in business, that this one thing is magic, the old shiny object
Mm,
syndrome, that no, we're doing Facebook, so we're doing everything right. But it's instead, what's that story that you're telling to other people? What's that
mm,
story that you're telegraphing to yourself?
yeah.
So, as I'm working with people, if it's a one to one sort of business consulting experience, we're combining that hypnotic aspect to overcome whatever fears, whatever
Mm,
personal blocks, whatever productivity sort of roadblocks are in the way.
yeah.
Though at the same time, we've got to look at what are you actually doing to drive your business?
Mm,
Because sometimes it's not just that emotional aspect. You need a few tips and tricks to actually get things in motion. Though
yeah.
the other side is nowadays too, being on the platform, whether it's a business that I'm speaking to, an association, how do we actually internalize goals and turn them into a reality? So
Mm,
teaching those
wow.
methods, one of which of course happens to be self-hypnosis, demonstrating with that with the group and giving them the mechanisms to do that on their own.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So there's a variety of different ways that you help people one on one in businesses, teaching people what you know to be able to go out and make that change and impact the world in a bigger way themselves. And I want to go back into the journey briefly. I'll make sure I put the link for the last interview in the comments below and in on the blog post. And just to catch people up, how did you get into NLP and hypnosis?
So my first experience with hypnosis was kind of like how most people first see it, that I was in college and they offered for the welcome week, here's the night that a hypnotist was going to come on campus and do the comedy show. And I'd never seen that before, so I really didn't know what to expect
Right.
and was just fascinated by the entire experience. That it then became this ravenous journey of reading as many books, watching as many video courses, eventually going off and doing live training. And I was working previously in a career in management in professional theater and burning out beautifully. And meanwhile, the hypnosis career was something that was kind of slowly developing on its own. I was
Yeah.
doing a wellness and sort of motivational program. I was working with individual clients, and I was on track to get this production management job that I'd perceived to be the dream career. And by the time it was offered, it felt like a kick in the stomach and just clearly wasn't the thing I wanted anymore. It's just that real mission statement that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it the rest of your life. So, and quite honestly, for the business folks that are out there, kind of maybe in those startup years, there was a moment of finally looking at the numbers. The numbers don't tend to lie, and realizing that I was actually earning more from the part-time career than I was from the full-time career.
Wow.
Nonprofit arts was actually nonprofit for most of us involved, and you'd kind of kill yourself the whole year working 60 to 80 hours a week to maybe get a 3% raise.
Wow.
And instead, now as the entrepreneur, I have that ability to create my own reality, go after whatever opportunities I want to decide, and even better, decide those things that just I don't want to do anymore. And I can now outsource those or subcontract those other abilities out. So there's no greater freedom than to break out as that entrepreneur.
Agreed, man. Agreed. I think that's something that a lot of people are looking for these days is the freedom, not to just be another cog in the machine, not to just be another like wake up and go through the routine and then go to sleep and then do it all over again. People don't want to live a life on repeat because I think they've seen the cost of that, the regrets that older people have.
Although, I mean, I mentioned that even the entrepreneurial mindset is something that can apply if you're, let's say, in corporate America and slowly working your way up the ranks.
Definitely.
That here's this opportunity. Here's a guy who I worked with years ago that the initial phone call was about having a fear of public speaking. And the reason, the motivator, the burning desire to get over this fear was that here was an opportunity, an open vice president position that he wanted to become more visible and be in line to get that job. Well, as he overcame the public speaking issue, he got the job. So to recognize that again, here he is in that world where yes, he is the employee, yet he has the ability to really facilitate that next step of his career. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, think like one and you can create those results for yourself.
I love it. I love it. And so I want to start digging into the subconscious secrets to be able to have successful businesses and really implement and execute that entrepreneurial mindset. Where do we really start with that, Jason?
So I think the model here is to show rather than tell. Rather than just talk about them, let's actually teach a few things that folks out there can actually make use of. So a couple of different strategies that I've prepared here to share with you and your audience here. Let's start with this. And let's go metaphor on this one because it's a whole lot more fun. We are out to dinner with friends of ours in New York City one time, and we were all together, just happened to be in town, and here's this person's birthday. And we're all out, and the experience was that here is this karaoke bar where you get to go and you get your own room. So it's not like the typical thing where you've got to wait for all the strangers to cycle through. It's like 12 of us in a room and that's it. And we get to run the thing ourselves. So we decided to play a game called Karaoke Russian Roulette, which we invented that night, which is that everyone has to go, but you get to pick the songs for everyone else. You can't pick your own song. Wow. So here's the friend, and a lot of my friends at this time were also in creative careers. And here's the one person who married someone outside of the creative industries. We'll call it a muggle. And he's there, and very clearly, he's talking about football, and all of us are going, not really our thing. And so, of course, he's the one who gets the song Firework by Katy Perry. And as he explained it, he goes, I was angry for two reasons. One, I had to do the song, and two, I knew all the words. So here's what I'm getting at. There are messages, there are statements that there are slogans, there are songs that are locked into your brain that you have never gone out of your way to memorize. But then again, maybe she's born with it, but maybe it's
a firework?
Maybelline. Okay, commercial. You probably don't wear as much makeup either, so I guess it's okay. So what I'm getting at is there's these messages that are stuck into our minds. And we can get cynical about this and say, oh, the advertising world understands influential language. We could get angry and say, the way that they wrote that pop song, it was stuck in my head for the next couple of weeks. What was it? In my book, I tell a story about using If I Had $1 Million by the Bare Naked Ladies as a alarm in the morning. And one of my friends calls up, she goes, I enjoyed the book, but that song has been stuck in my head for weeks. Thank you. I go, it's a good song. You're welcome. So we can get angry about this, or we can recognize what's actually happening.
Mm,
We have that ability. How does something become permanent within the mind?
mm,
It happens by way of intensity or repetition.
yeah.
So maybe this is what we call in hypnosis the prestige suggestion,
Mm,
that someone from authority says something and that message sticks.
wow.
Now, this is usually talked about as a negative thing. That I work a lot with athletes, and maybe there's the coach who says, well, your frame is small. You're never going to be as strong as everyone else. Well, maybe not. Or here's the moment from a positive place. The mentor looks at the person and says, you're really good at this. This is what you should spend the rest of your life doing. And that
Mm,
message sticks in a really positive way.
yeah.
So if we have that ability to take on information at its core, hypnosis is really just about heightened communication. Why
Mm,
don't we start to use this for good rather than just be the victim of it? So the message becomes everything you've ever heard about affirmations, positive statements, mantras. We can use that, but let's now really supercharge this,
mm,
because we all have these little magical devices that are in our pockets
mm.
that already have little
Yeah.
voice recorders embedded inside of them.
Yeah.
And just for about 5 minutes of homework,
Mm,
you can build something that becomes a conscious reinforcement mechanism.
mm,
Take that statement, put action to it. Take that outcome you want to create. I remember to ask for referrals as my client is smiling.
mm.
Something of that nature.
That's good.
To I recognize business opportunities are everywhere.
Mm,
Take that message, and the more ridiculous this feels, lean into it even further, because it's the unconscious mind that just loves that repetition. That's how you know the words to that song. That's how you know that advertising campaign. And even better now, it's going to be in your voice.
mm,
Record yourself just on repeat, saying the same phrase over and over for about 5 minutes or so. And the task here is put that thing on repeat in this time that normally we waste.
mm.
You're driving in traffic, listen to it there. You're getting some tasks done around home, listen to it there. Just let that thing kind of drone all around in the background. And the benefit of this becomes is you don't have to stop and remember to do this.
Mm.
Instead, you don't even have to focus on it. Just put it on the repeat loop, the same way that, what was it? We were watching this past week's Saturday Night Live, and I've never really listened to the singer Halsey before. But again, I knew the lyrics to her song. So it's working. So take that same psychological principle and now let it become your words. Again, the
Mm,
benefit becomes it takes a few moments to prep it. You
yeah.
don't even have to pay attention to it. Just put it on a loop, and you'll soon find yourself responding very positively as you're now writing that new dialogue of your own internal communication.
Wow, that's so powerful. And that's we look at, hey, what's the area we want to grow in, right? What's an area that's not working as well as I would like it to? How can I see myself or that area in a better light, in a positive way, inspiring, empowering, uplifting? And then we declare that's who I am, right? Using I am statements is probably powerful, or I remember, I do, I act, I be, different stuff like that to be that person and execute that vision for the better life. And then we record it and we play it often. We play it when we're in the middle of things. We're at the gym, we're walking around, we're doing chores, we're driving, when we are don't need to be consciously focused with our full attention. We're just doing the things, then that's a really great time to play it.
And also inside of that too, this kind of builds to the second thing I wanted to share with you,
Yeah.
which is this formula of what's called pacing and leading.
Mm,
And let's put this into a hypnotic context first. And this is something that many of you are already aware of, but we're going to, again, supercharge it with a few hypnotic principles.
mhm,
I want you to notice what happens if I just simply, this is slightly hypnotic, but you don't have to close the eyes, or you can perfectly drive and operate a forklift if that's what you're currently doing. To say to you right now, the command statement, go ahead and relax even further.
mm,
And if I say that, it's a little jarring. And very often just firing off that as a command statement, even if I softened it, go ahead and relax even further.
mm.
People would often tense up in response to that. And
Wow.
not to play the game of trying to psychologically read into that. What do they have against relaxation? What stress are they holding onto in their body? No, recognize, as we would say, the meaning of the communication is the response that it gets.
Mm,
So instead, let's get more specific here and add one more ingredient to the entry point of this.
mm,
A simple instruction. You can do this wherever you are safely. Go ahead, take a nice deep breath in And as you exhale now, go ahead and relax even further down. And you're already nodding because you're noticing there's a very different reaction from that.
Yeah.
And this is a concept called pacing and leading. And this is
Mm.
something that I've shared in the hypnosis community. It's something we now share with the business world.
Wow.
Every effective suggestion for change, every effective call to action is an action followed by a result.
Mm.
So this becomes part of that formula we can use with that conscious reinforcement. That now there's a context that makes sense. And this starts to build our sales copy, our persuasive language. This starts to build that ongoing momentum of communication in a much more direct way, rather than just saying, buy this now.
Mm.
Well, buy this now to receive your 10-day coaching program.
Mm.
Pick up the phone today and call to get your strategy session to take action upon your goals.
Yeah.
We're putting the action followed by a result. So let's put this into the context of whether it's the positive suggestion, the affirmation, whatever terminology you want to use, it becomes universal.
Mhm.
As I'm, rather than look in the mirror and fire off the positive statement, I have saved enough money for my children's college education, which I could say that, and unfortunately that would be lying. Uh, we've opened accounts, and there's some money that's in there, and yes, it is growing. But then again, our kids are 5 and 7, so we're kind of appropriately procrastinating because there's 11 years for the older one. So to say it from the position that here's what I have now done, as I've seen that sometimes in affirmation work,
Mm.
part of the brain called the reticular activating cortex. It's the part of the brain that sorts between things that are familiar and things that are new. It's unofficially the part of the mind, I'll censor it, that we can probably nickname the BS filter. And that's the part of the mind that's kind of firing off going, you haven't really funded the younger one's account. So instead, let's put action result into the formula for this. As I set aside 10% of my income automatically, I easily save money for my children's college education.
Wow.
Now I've activated. As I attend the networking meeting, I speak with confidence about the passion of my business.
Wow.
As I do this, as this thing happens, hey, Chris, when I say hey, you say ho, hey,
Oh.
this stuff works. So looking at it from the action to the result, the cause to the effect.
Yeah.
So recognizing that this is really at its core, yes, we can get, a little fancy and claim this is hypnotic communication, but so much of this is just based on effective communication. We can just brand it in this unique way, which, yes, let's call it out, does make it stand out a little bit more. But this is how we activate it. As I do this, this is the result. We can look at the word attraction, but really instead look at the last 5 letters. This puts the action into the attraction.
So powerful. So it's as I blank, as I take action, then I get the result. And when we do that, that bypasses the reticular activating cortex, I believe you called it, which is the BS filter in the mind, so that we can really be in alignment and be congruent. Because a lot of people have that challenge with the affirmations that aren't yet true, but they want them to be true, but they don't know that it's being blocked by their subconscious mind.
Right. And it's where we can just simply fire off the statement and hope the darts stick, but consider that action-based side of it as the actual momentum. We're winding up that machine. We're setting things in motion. I talk about the mindset of building assets and leveraging them in terms of talking about business. What is some sort of resource that I currently have, whether it's a testimonial from the past client, back to this thing, whether it's some article, here's a feature on me that was in a magazine a couple of months ago. And we could sit back and just play the game of look how awesome I am, but instead ask yourself, who needs to see this? And this is where we can bring in that relationship and that foot in the door. And the catchphrase here is that one of the best business lessons I learned came from watching The Simpsons. That if you remember back, there was the Troy McClure character voiced by Phil Hartman that would always introduce of, hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from, and would get some reference point. But using that as the mechanism to go, here's this testimonial that someone wrote for me in a very specific micro niche industry. Who else needs to see this? So I could sit back and bask in the glow of the testimonial or the media piece that just happened, but instead ask myself, who else needs to see this piece? When we put action to it, that's when we can actually track something. That's where we see that tangible result. That's where the business really begins to take off.
Wow, that's powerful. So I know we're talking now about the, like systems almost,
Yeah.
having systems in place that will be able to produce results. How do you relate systems with communication? How do those two come together for you, Jason?
Well, the core of systems is to look at things as replicatable tools.
Mm,
So we can talk systems like, for example, as you and I are here, I was turning my phone over just now because it was lighting up because there's an online campaign running and
mm.
3 people just bought the thing for $97. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
kids, we're having dinner tonight. Another single. So we could look at it from that automation side that this product that's currently on the market at the time of this recording is something that I filmed in August last year and
Mm,
now is on the market as a digital resource. So there's one method of systemization of, built the sales page, programmed in the email sequence to then promote the passive income machine,
yeah.
but also to look at systems. Let's bring it back to the relationships of what really got my business on the map.
Mm,
Was doing a lot of network marketing in the early years. So going out there, Chamber of Commerce, BNI, the fundraising for good kind of model that's popular nowadays, where
yeah.
your registration for the fundraising event, $50 goes to this charity. And that became like the stand-up comedian hitting the open mic nights and just workshopping materials.
Mm,
The way that the comedian will do the tour, really workshopping the material, and then what you see on HBO or Netflix or whatever station it's on is now the thing that's taken a year to get up in motion.
yeah.
So using that network marketing to really build that relationship, I'd say it just as much with others, but also with myself.
Yeah.
What is the way that I am the most congruent communicating my message? Now,
Mm,
once that was refined, I've since not spent as much time in the network marketing world. I'll still occasionally go as like a guest or, with a friend perhaps,
yeah.
yet it's not a big part of my business these days of actually being there in the trenches live doing the work
Wow.
because what I said in those communities would eventually became refined the same way that here's the comedian workshopping on the stage and now it's on television. That's when I turned on the video cameras. That's when I
Ah.
then captured that message and went from the one to one
Mm,
to the one to many. That
yeah.
there's a line that comes out of old school vaudeville theater, which
Mm,
was that the amateur changes their act, the professional changes their audience.
mm.
And meanwhile, yes, we're always going to be customizing that act, that presentation to better
Yeah.
fit that specific audience. The way that my keynote presentation I do for businesses and associations, there's a standard framework to it. I know here are the points that I'm going to teach. Here's the demonstration. There's the call to action at the end to actually put this stuff to use. That skeleton structure is always going to be there,
Right.
but it's got to begin with what needs are your company facing?
Mm,
What are the popular issues in your industry? How can this presentation help to resolve that?
mm.
So this is where that systemization is that I can look at what part am I going to be responsible for creating, and the rest of it can become, as the great American inventor would say, Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. It's something that now I know how to let it run itself.
That's awesome. And so you had to practice in the beginning to figure out that one-to-one message and to figure out what is the congruent, aligned, powerful, empowering communication style that works best for you and reaches other people and has them light up, has them see possibility, has them want to take action and sign up and experience the benefits of what you had to offer. Took you some time to really iron those out and get the skeleton in place, and then once you had the skeleton, so to speak, then you could easily fill it with different content and kind of mix and match and see what is really going to resonate the most with this audience, or ask what do they really need based on me talking to the organizer of this event, what were his biggest outcomes that he wanted to accomplish. Well, if I keep my framework and the skeleton of the talk of the presentation and change out the content that executes on that outcome, then that's a successful approach.
Right, exactly. So to look at what are those aspects that I can build, what are those ways I can customize, and
Mm,
that's really where that takes off in terms of, again, delivering that solid message. That I bring it back to a story from the networking world. That one of the first meetings I ever went to, this guy, and the product he was selling is actually really cool, though I'd say probably out of date a good 13 years later. That it was this. Well, here's what he did. He got up and he goes, "Hey, I've got this video phone. It's $600. If you want to buy a video phone, see me after the meeting. And of course, produced zero sales as a result of that, and is then in the parking lot of this event with his girlfriend who was picking him up going, "This meeting's stupid. I'm never going back." Now, about 3 weeks later, I'm at another event, and the sort of telecom company ACN, it's a video thing that they used to have. And I'm seeing someone else get up, and I see the same device, and it's me, of course, casting a bit of a judgment at first, going, let's see how it goes this time. It's up in the basic delivery, if I remember it. This is again 13 years later, I think. How many of you have family members who are in other countries who are not as tech savvy as you are? You know, of course, there's new platforms like Skype, again, 13 years ago, that you can use. But if your family members are not as computer literate, that may be a conflict. My company produces a video phone that requires no software. All you have to do is plug it into the Ethernet jack, again, 13 years ago. And as soon as you open it up, the software is hardwired to another device. You just have to open up both devices, and immediately it's like the Jetsons. You're in a video chat with your family member. We sell this on our website for $600. However, the holiday promotion is no matter where your family member is in the world, we'll ship the extra device to them. And this year, you don't have to pay for the extra device.
Wow.
And she had a line at the end of it. And I'm even there going, I want one of those, even though I didn't need it. What's the need? What's the value? Now, we can take a step back and go, oh, she's better at it. But clearly, what was she doing? She was looking at what were the needs of that communication? What were the needs of those people? And using story. This is another one of those subconscious secrets, using story to draw people in. She didn't just get up and go, who wants to buy this thing? She presented that need. And of course, there were some people in the room, myself included, who didn't need that. But then again, if you try to sell to everybody, sometimes you end up selling to nobody who wants to buy the video phone. Instead, she crafted the specific avatar, the very specific type. And I think I counted like 8 or 9 sales at that event. Wow. Just simply by telling that story. Here's the need, and the oh wow offer at the end, and you get the extra device for free, and we'll ship it to your family member for you. Just nailed it in a matter of 45 seconds.
Wow, that's so powerful, and it goes from, you know, here's the thing. Do you want the thing? To, hey, I get where you're at. You know, it's kind of like that you're meeting people where they're at. You're building the rapport by saying, if you have this problem, if you have family who you are out of contact with, out of touch with, it's like hitting that pain point that a lot of people used to feel, especially because there was not very many opportunities to connect with people from other countries. So it's like to give them hope, to give them inspiration, to say, oh my gosh, what would it be like to connect with Grandma Lucy who lives in Europe, who I haven't talked to in years or decades or whatever. That's something that is really, it opens up possibility in that communication of those benefits.
You just used the word rapport there, and you brought it up in the right context, that the whole thing of what's often taught as matching and mirroring, and how do we get someone to like us unconsciously, everything that's taught out there in terms of rapport. This is a category of work that, first things first, these techniques were not invented. They were discovered by tracking people who were already in rapport with each other. And let me give the quick plug on this. If you go to the website rethinkingrapport.com, that'll just redirect over to YouTube. I did a TEDx talk in April last year specifically on the concepts of rapport and how to rethink how we build that. So the origin of it was that we are getting into someone else's model of the world. It's not how it's really taught at times nowadays around, I'm going to trick you to like me. I'm going to move like you so you'll buy from me. This is not the intention of it. It's instead, how do I step into your model of the world to better understand your values, your strategies, your needs, so we can communicate with each other on a much deeper level. So to put yourself in that game of, let me step into their shoes for a moment. So back to the networking world. This one might sound a little vindictive, but it landed really well, and I knew my audience that I was looking for. Let me set the stage for this one. I'd be at the networking event. I'd only pull this one out if I was a guest. And I'd be there, a guest of someone else, and I'd pull you aside. Hey, Chris, before we sit down, what order do people usually get up and give their elevator speech? And you tell me where. It's like, can we sit somewhere where I get to be one of the last people? And I'd specifically, position myself to be one of the last people to get up. And take note in the delivery of this, I'm not immediately getting up and saying, hi, I'm Jason. I'm a hypnotist. I help people in business,
Right.
because that's how everybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Instead, I just stood up, silent, calm for a moment, pulling all attention. So it's your turn to speak, and you're doing your best to keep your voice from stammering and shaking. You're holding an object in your hand. That way, no one can see your fingers and your arms are shaking. And maybe perhaps you're docking yourself on the table or the back of a chair because your legs are about to fall out from underneath you.
Mm.
It's your opportunity to speak, and you are passionate about your business, and yet everything about your body language and internal demeanor is conveying something opposite of that. If I've described you, we need to talk. My name is
Wow.
Jason Linett. I'm a hypnotist, and I'm an expert in helping people to empower their public speaking. Not just let go of the fear, but also bring in a few linguistic strategies to empower your communication and speak with greater intention.
Mm.
Again, if I've described you, see me as soon as you can after the meeting. Let this be the last time you felt nervous speaking in public.
Wow.
Which that came from, again, just listening to those people I was having come into the office and express this was their concern.
Mm.
Bring them into the experience the same way that any movie nowadays, they often sweep you into the action as soon as the movie begins. And it's the game of who are these people? What's going on? They're not setting the exposition in oh, Chris, it's so good to be here on a Wednesday afternoon and this event on this day of your father's. Yeah, they're not doing that.
No.
Instead, sweep into the experience, make
Mm.
them care before you ever ask them to listen.
Mm. Man, that's so powerful. And it's really what used to work 10, 20 years ago in marketing, where it was just as simple as, hey, I help businesses grow. And people are like, oh, I need help. But because there's so many offers and so many people doing that, and so many messages going across our reality, right? Like that we have to filter through, it has to be something that pulls us out of our whatever our current like state is, or whatever we're preoccupied with, and gets us into another world, a world of possibility, a world of intrigue, of mystery, of excitement, because that is what people want. They want to come alive. They want to feel alive. And if they have this like, got to pick up the phone, dial another 40 people today, if you can take them out of that reality and paint it in a different picture, then I think that's super powerful. But we have to first meet them where they are.
And deliver that specific message too along the way that,
Yeah.
I was speaking directly to people in business with a fear of public speaking. And this is a fear sometimes of people, whether it's a website, a product, or some sort of networking event type thing, that, oh no, if I get up and talk about that one thing, they won't come to me for the other stuff. When really, as soon as you do that, you position yourself as the expert, and people will come to you faster. So there's weight loss is a massive industry. And in terms of like private clients, I think it was Monday this week that I had 3 people in for weight loss, and they all fit a very specific category that I communicate with thanks to some targeted online ads.
Yeah.
People who are diabetic that need to curb that sugar craving to control their blood sugar numbers. And by doing that, that's what's going to help them improve their health and lose weight, rather than anybody. As soon as I cast out that very specific message, now here's the person doing, hey, I want to do keto and I'm having a hard time. Hey, I'm trying to put on some muscle and I need the better motivation. They'll hear that specialty, and on their own, they'll draw that connection. Here's where, this is what got me started talking to businesses. That part of my origin story was that the networking events were unfortunately casting a bit of a negative expectation. It's going to be slow your first year. Maybe you should have eased into this gradually. And instead, I hit the ground running and I packed my office immediately. And now they were going, wait, how did you do that? So I have a product out there called Hypnotic Business Systems, which I sell to wellness related industries, whether it's hypnotists, counselors, therapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists, a couple of health coaches in there too. And it's very much a wellness related program in terms of how do you get business? How do you get those clients? But I'd have the client who would then call me for the local office. And of course, in the 21st century, what do we do if we want to make a buying decision? We Google the heck out of everything.
Yep.
I'm going to buy this case for my phone. What are the reviews?
Yep.
I wanted more decaf coffee. This is really exciting here right now. I wanted more decaf coffee for my office. What are the K-cups that actually are the ones that say they won't explode in the machine? Which the coffee grinds are what I'm hiding here. So we do this. So my clients were calling me and seeing, wait, here's this whole other side of what this hypno guy is doing.
Mm,
And it would come in and we'd be working on the fear of failure, even times the fear of success. And to hear what was going on in their business, there was this clear gap in terms of their strategy that, oh no, we're putting everything on Facebook now and no one's calling us from it. It's like, well, what's your goal of being there? We need to look at the actual strategy
yeah.
and start to build this whole content mechanism where now they're providing value. They're helping someone to create some sort of win, which from that pivots them back to go, I need more from this person. Yet still, it came back to they're looking at the little green light on their computer screen for the little webcam, and they're now the deer in the headlights feeling terrified. So we've got to work on that side of it too.
Yeah.
That it came about from originally they were calling and looking up the hypnotist to overcome the emotional side of things, but then they saw here's the whole business side of what I do and going, this person's going to help me from all angles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I love it, Jason. I'm curious, what usually stops people the most in terms of their subconscious mind in terms of having business success? Is there anything that you see pop up more than other blocks or limiting beliefs or certain things?
I'd say it's an ownership of how we feel. That to really embrace the idea that let's give a background to this, that there's a thing in hypnotic communication that are called presuppositions. And there's a series of them that are kind of like when the old story of Martin Luther nailing the theses to the church door, that here are these mission statements. And I mentioned one of them already, that the meaning of the communication is the response that it gets. Here's the story behind what's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming presuppositions. These are statements that you don't have to absolutely accept them as being 100% true. However, if you operate as if they were true, that's where we become even more effective. So the meaning of the communication is the response that it gets. Let's say for whatever reason, I suddenly say something and I offend you, which we got at least another 20 minutes. So let's see what happens. So I suddenly say something and I offend you. And if I then go off and go, I can't believe this guy, I just said this thing to him and he got all offended, we're going to hit a brick wall from that. If instead I operate from the place that the meaning of the communication is the response that it gets, that now means I get to be more flexible in my communication and take ownership of what result my words were received by, to then change my words in such a way that we can now drive the communication forward. There's a popular one that many people have heard before. This crossovers to other, sort of wellness mindsets that are out there, that there's no failure, there's feedback. To look at something, here's a class I promoted one time and one person signed up. And instead of just blaming the market, blaming the economy, instead, well, the feedback was I did not poll my audience to find out what they were looking for. So the next go around, I polled my audience, sold out the event, 30 people at a high premium, and that became a product I sell to this day. So awesome. The feedback was listen to my audience. The one to take ownership of is that we can drive our own state of mind. We can take ownership of our own emotions, which may sound like a bit of a reach for some people. But again, you don't have to accept it as 100% true. Yet if you operate as if it were true, now we've put some flexibility to it. We've taken it out of that, let's get grammatical on this one. We've taken out of that nominalized stuck state to instead go, I have fear, but instead to make it something specific. I'm feeling fear about this thing. Now it's something that there's motion to. So to recognize that we can start to plagiarize from the best, we can start to copy and paste our own experiences. If confidence is the issue, what are those things that you are confident about? What's that perhaps belief structure that you're holding yourself back? I can't do this. And there's a whole side aspect of what I do as a hypnotist, something called submodalities, which is where we're taking the content of an idea and dragging it into the context of what you want to create. And what's beautiful about this is that sometimes we can actually shift our thinking based on ideas that are not as profound as we would think. So you would not argue with me that your name is Chris, right? That's just fact. You absolutely know that. And Chris, when you think about the fact that your name is Chris, become aware of how that feels in your body to just know your name is Chris, and just become aware of that sensation. And we can use that as a resource and maybe take some other idea that you've been kind of dreading or dwelling on, or some
Mm,
sort of limiting belief that you already know is false. But
mm,
what happens if you take that belief system and bring it into that feeling that just, I
mm,
know my name, and represent it with those same connotations, that same feeling? We can start to create that shift inside of ourselves, which,
mm,
taking something that's not even as profound as we would think, that, I, can create this thing. Take something tangible. I know my name. I know where I live. I
mm.
know how to put shoes on. And take that solid feeling, and drag that idea into that
Mm,
part of the mind and body, and notice what changes. To even look at the ability, this is something that I teach people in business. And I'll mention a free resource here that you can just let me guide it for you as an audio MP3 that I'll share with you. That this idea of what we call anchoring, that you hinted at earlier,
mm,
that when we're in that ideal state of mind, we can replicate that. We can call upon that
mm,
feeling. And again, this is something we do on our own organically. You hear a song on the radio, and it reminds you of what you were going through when you first heard that song.
yep.
You walk into a room and there's a specific smell, let's say lemon, and
Mm,
suddenly your mind is connecting to cleaning supplies or sweets or whatever it might be. You
mhm.
hear Katy Perry firework and you think of the hypnotist on the Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self podcast. You're welcome. Uh, so you have that law of associative memory in your mind. Let's start to what we call anchoring. And here's
Mm,
the technical side of it. Anchoring is when you connect a sensory experience to another sensory experience. You
mm,
smell the lemons, and it brings you back to those cupcakes that you had at this restaurant. You hear the song on the radio. This is making me draw out the most random of references. My parents are wedding photographers, and growing up, I would sometimes go with them and do what's called double lighting, which was
mm,
really funny. That I'm very short at the time, but the light was on a stick. It was a radio connection to the flash in their camera. It lit the back of the room, so it wasn't like in darkness. It's the early 1990s, and every damn couple was using Eric Clapton "Wonderful Tonight" as their first dance. Which, for fun fact, Google what that song is really about, and makes it really a good choice for the first dance. Oh, here, the best man wants to cut in. Look that up on your own time. So I was having a bit of a visceral reaction when I heard that song, but then when I learned what the song was about, I crack up at the idea now. So let's use this idea. Here's where we put this to use. You're on a sales call, you're on the phone, you're in person.
mhm,
When you're winning, just to use a simple statement, when you're winning, as soon as you recognize you're in that state, do something specific.
mm,
And I give the instruction in a vague way because it's where your circumstances, your situation is what's going to help to empower that. So you probably heard the idea of a finger and thumb squeezed in together,
mhm,
or perhaps some sort of word to trigger that state of mind. This
mm,
is something that we're going to basically program ourselves like software. When I work with my public speakers, very often, especially athletes too, asking the question of what is a posture that you're going to get into.
mm,
So for the golfer, there they are rolling the shoulders down, getting ready to putt. For the speaker, there's that moment where they step on stage
mm.
and the feet land, and then they get into that posture and they're there.
Solid.
Whatever that posture is, do that intentionally. Get into that mode. There's the old story that the actor Jack Lemmon used to say, "Magic time," every time the director yelled, "Action." He would mimic
That's
it. It was
awesome.
action time, which apparently drove Walter Matthau crazy, which I'm sure is part of the reason he did it. My cultural references are going to get gradually more specific and obscure, by the way, the longer we chat.
I got it. I
So,
got it. Katy
but
Perry
do
we
something
started with, and
exactly. Do
then
something very specific in that moment. And the game becomes, when you recognize you're in that ideal state, step into that posture, step into that
Mm,
gesture, fire off that word. And
mm,
now start to use this as a trigger. So the
nice.
phone is ringing and it's time for the person to pick up.
Mm,
Get into that posture, clap the hand, say the word, whatever that one specific thing is,
yeah.
fire it off to bring yourself intentionally back into that state of mind. The sort of sentimental, emotional side goes back to, we were in Vancouver.
Mm,
Friends of ours got married out in Canada, and we were out there with our daughter at the time. She's 7 years old now, but at the time of the story, she was 3 months old.
mm,
She fell asleep on my chest. I'm supposed to be downstairs hanging out with all the college friends. It's becoming a bit of a reunion for this wedding.
mm,
And just newborn baby fell asleep on me.
mm,
And time was just completely still. and I could reach my phone to text my wife, send the photo of little half smile baby face sleeping. And just, I got into a specific posture. I just squeezed my hand in that moment. And still to this day, I can replicate that action, fire off that anchor, that trigger, and bring back that same passion, that same love, that same calm throughout my body
Wow.
to this day. So recognize when you are operating at your optimal ability, and think of it again like on a computer. We can copy and paste, we can click and drag. You can
Mm,
replicate that state on purpose and use that. If you find yourself in that funk, if you find yourself in that disconnected, sort of frustrating place,
mhm,
um, that's where you can fire that thing off, interrupt that pattern. The
mm.
cool thing about this is the more you make use of it as a technique, the better it's going to work for you. And the better it works for you, the less you're going to need it as a technique, as you've just now conditioned that new normal, that new automatic response.
That's so amazing. Jason, this is so powerful, and I really appreciate this because this is something we can go to every single time we want to get into a state. Every time we get a sale, every time we have a great meeting, every time we celebrate something, we have a great kiss, whatever it is, we can do that. And that's super powerful, Jason. So
You
if
mind
we
if I
could,
share that quick resource? It's probably a good time
yeah,
since
share it.
that's so
Sure.
that, yeah. If you go to
Hmm.
worksmartbusiness.com, Work Smart Business is my book, but go to worksmartbusiness.com/confidence.
Mm,
So put the word confidence after the slash. That's where you can download a free 15-minute hypnotic audio program that's actually going to guide you through this confidence building anchoring process to help you
mm,
to activate your own peak performance state of mind, to break out of whatever funk or sort of disconnected state that you're in, to step into that best version of you. The cool thing about it being an audio, it's only 15 minutes long. You can listen to it as many times as you want, and the hypnosis method again becomes stronger the more you make use of it. So
mm.
the audio eventually falls away like training wheels. You don't have to go back to it. So that
Wow.
website again is worksmartbusiness.com/confidence. That's where you can get that free download.
So awesome, Jason. Super powerful. If we could wrap up this interview with a final, takeaway that you want our audience to implement and execute because of their time here, what is that?
So the name of the book is Work Smart Business, and that whole work smart mindset became a bit of a mantra, a bit of an anchor for myself over time. And I'd openly share that I'd used that as branding for a couple of years, and then finally realized I have to define this. I have to explain what I mean
Mm,
by that.
yeah.
And it came down to everything with purpose, with focus, and with intention.
Mm,
So to let that mindset of working smart start to spread through all aspects of what you do. I'm going to go out to an event with friends, and I'm there to have a good time, to set the business world off to the side and not have to work, on my business in that time frame. To
yeah.
be at home and really compartmentalize my life. That when I leave the office, and I'm there with my kids. And my
Mm,
intention is to be there and spend that quality time with them, and then turn the business mindset back on when it's
mm,
the appropriate time to do that. And to look at working smart, especially nowadays, if you spend enough time on Twitter or Instagram, you see people bragging about effort.
mm,
No days off, grinding it out. And it's not to say that sometimes the work isn't hard. Sometimes
mm,
it's long hours. Sometimes I had to stand on my feet for 9 hours and then spend many more hours outsourcing the video editing for that online campaign that's currently
right,
running, and
right.
then figure out, the if then marketing, and it's at least explain then to an outsourcer how to make that happen.
Yeah.
So that was effort. And that
Mm,
took real work to figure out how to do a couple of years ago when I started building my business in the digital space.
mm,
But to work smart by going, what can I learn from this? What are
mm,
the elements that I can give to somebody else? How can I streamline the experience? So really it comes down to that word intent. Put intent behind what you do, and
mm.
you're going to find a much greater result by doing so.
I love it. Jason, absolutely. And our audience wants to take the next step with you. I know we talked about worksmartbusiness.com. They can find your book there. I think it's /burn or /GPS, and they
Yeah,
can
for this one, we'll
get.
do the forward slash of confidence. That's where they can get that audio program.
Cool,
To
cool,
find me directly, just type in jasonlinett.com.
cool.
And the anecdote is you can type it 7 or 8 ways incorrectly. It'll just redirect to the right place. I bought them all.
Awesome.
But Linett is spelled Linett. There's only 6 letters, jasonlinett.com. And I'm all the social media platforms there too. And check out Work Smart Business. That's my book available on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, Jason, you're amazing, man. And again, I love how you have this business success, plus you have the family, the beautiful family that you show up for, and just an amazing family, man, and just adding massive value into the world. I appreciate what you do and how you do it. It is phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here, brother.
Absolutely. And keep this up. I love the whole 12-hour marathon I've been watching since we first connected and really enjoying what you're putting out there.
Thank you, brother. We'll see you soon, okay?
See you around.